Hey, what's going on, guys? Hopefully you're having a good weekend. I know I sure am. I want to take a little bit of time out of my day, though, to throw together a video for you. I had a request to talk about the seams and edges, what I'm doing to get them clean, and fill in the gaps. So I'm going to go ahead and get into that. But before I do that, you know I got to talk about this beer sitting over here. Really excited about this beer, and I'll tell you why here. Because you look at this bottle, and there is no label on that bottle because I made this beer. This is a homemade beer. This is Oktoberfest from last year, and like a fine wine, beer actually gets better with age as long as it's homebrewed. So, awesome beer. Really excited to be drinking this with you guys here today. So, haven't thought about a name, but BM Bids Brewery, whatever. I'll come up with some cool name. Maybe you could throw a name out there, and I'll slap it on the bottle. But let's get into this video here. So we're going to talk about the cleaning up the seams and edges, and basically making a seamless piece. So there's a couple different things that are going to go into this. First, we're going to talk about the foam itself. Most of you guys probably get foam, and it has a texture on the back. Well, this texture isn't going to be too good if you're going to be gluing two pieces together. It's going to basically have gaps on it, and you're not going to want that because you want that thing to be as clean as it can be. So a couple different ways you can get rid of that texture. You can also have a texture that looks like a diamond plate as well. This one here is a hash pattern on it. So first and foremost, the easiest way to get rid of it is get a foam that doesn't have texture on it. This one here you can see doesn't have it. I picked this up from TNT Cosplay online. Really good product. This foam is really nice. I haven't really used it too much because I plan on using it more for like finishing pieces. But that's always an option if you want to go that route. So keep that one in mind. Easiest way to get rid of textures, don't have it. So if you do have a texture though, what I'm going to tell you to do is sand it off. I know it's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to really slow your project down. But in the end result is you're going to be really happy with it. And trust me, it's going to be worth the extra time you put into it. So make sure you do that if you want that edge to be nice and clean. A couple other things you could do is you could fill it in with stuff. I try to avoid filling in the gaps and the seams. The easiest way to do it is just to avoid them altogether. But at the end of the video, I'll talk about a couple things you can fill it in with. Like I said, I don't do it, so I don't really know. I haven't used it, so I can't tell you if it's good or not. But so if you got that base of the texture on the back, I just use a Dremel, and I'll just take the Dremel and clean up that edge about the thickness of the foam that I'm going to be sticking to it. So not only does this give us a good spot for the glue to adhere to, but it's also going to get rid of the little dimples in there, so when you put another piece onto this, you're not going to see those dimples, and it's going to be a nice clean edge. The other thing too is when you're gluing this stuff, you want to have a really good glue. The glue that I'm going to be using is Barge Contact Cement. There's other contact cements out there. I've used them, haven't been really too happy with them, but Barge it's awesome. It's a little bit more expensive, and it's pretty toxic too, so make sure you're taking care of yourself and you're wearing a respirator when you're using it, because you only get one set of lungs, and trust me, you don't want to lose those things. It's going to make a really bad day for you, so just keep that in mind. So once you have your texture sanded off, that's just one step to basically make sure your seams look good. Another thing you got to think about is when you're cutting these seams, if you have a bad knife or your knife isn't sharp, your seams are going to look really bad. Now, I got this edge on here. I purposely did this with a horrible knife, and I marred the knife all up before I did it to show it. It's horribly exaggerated. If you have an edge like that and you're trying to glue it together on your project, you should probably stop, because this looks horrible. But like I said, this is the extreme circumstance here. So sharp blade, you will avoid this. If you have a sharp blade, this is what it's going to look like. Really nice and clean, and it's going to cut right through it like butter. So that's one of the biggest things, getting clean edges and seams on your stuff. Just get a sharp knife. Now, you can have an endless supply of blades on hand and just change your blades out every time it gets dull. You're going to get really tired of that because foam dulls it out really fast. So the easiest thing I like to do is I'll just grab my sharpener. I'll just run it a couple times on the course, and just maybe 4 or 5 swipes on it, and it's nice and sharp again. And believe it or not, I actually will do that on a brand new blade too, because brand new blades right out of the box will have burrs on it. So when you go to cut your foam, you're going to feel it catch, and it's going to get burred up, and you're going to feel it tear. So even on a brand new blade, I'll run it through a couple times, and it's crazy the difference, and just really nice and clean, and it cuts right through it like a hot knife in butter. So avoiding gaps is always the easiest way to having a good looking project. So just keep that in mind. You know, nice sharp blade. You're gonna have nice clean edges. So when you join things together, you won't have a seam. If you try joining that up, that seam's gonna look pretty bad, and you're gonna have to do some cosmetic work after that. So I got a couple pieces here that I've already done for you, and you can kind of see them. Hopefully you can see them. This half here, I sanded this texture off before I glued this together for this 90-degree piece right here. So this edge here was sanded off. This one was not. So if you take a look, you can see these little tiny kind of like holes, little dimples and stuff in there. That's the side that I didn't sand down. Now, normally this isn't really too visible, but say you hit this with like a glossy spray paint, and it's going to really exaggerate those dimples and these lines and stuff. So you're going to see that. So just take the extra time, sand that texture off, and if this thing was the diamond plate one, it would probably be really bad. You'd see huge gaps in here, but this one with the little hash texture, it's not too bad. But just take the extra time and sand it off, and this is what it's going to look like. Real nice, clean seam, and it's going to look really sharp. So the other thing I like to do is I'll take my Dremel. I use my Dremel all the time. It's an absolutely amazing tool. There's other Dremels out there, like not Dremel brand, but Rotary Tools. Great tool to have. Make sure you have that in your shop, because it saved my butt so many times. It's crazy, and it really just takes a project to the next level and makes it look really clean. So make sure you guys have one of those things on hand with the little sanders on it, and you're gonna be really happy. So the other thing I like to do here, same 90-degree type piece. So basically, I have this piece. I cleaned up the texture on the other side, but I took it another step further, because it looks good, but you can always make it look better, right? So what I did with this one on here was, this one was sanded up afterwards, after I sanded or glued the seams together, and this one was not. So you could see this. It doesn't look bad, but you could see there's an edge on there. But then you look at this one, and it's almost seamless. Like this foam was just designed like that, and that's one of the biggest ways that my edges look the way they do, is just I take the time, I clean them up before I stick them together, and I clean them up after I stick them together. And that's what you get, just real nice clean edge. And the other thing I like to do is on my edges, I'll actually just run a Dremel real quick and just take that sharp edge off. I just think it looks a little bit more natural, a little bit more worn, and it looks really good with majority of the things I build. So give it a try. I think you'll like that a lot. It looks really sharp. So that pretty much covers that as far as the seams go. Like I said, the easiest way to have a clean seam is to avoid basically the extra steps that you're going to need to, with the end result of filling that. So, sand that texture off of there, sand it afterwards, and it's going to look amazing. Now, let's say something happened and you had a seam that just, blew open or something like that, and it just wasn't working for you. There's a couple things you could do to cover those up. Like I said, I haven't done those things before, but if you need to, you can use like a silicone sealant. Not really sure what the brand is, but you can fill the hole in, then you smooth it out. You get your finger wet, you smooth it out, and it looks seamless, but you can still kind of see it. And some of them are actually sandable, you can get as well. And then you can also use something like Bondo, or you can try fiberglass. The thing with fiberglass is, if it's a piece that flexes, when that flexes, that fiberglass is going to crack. And that's something you need to keep in mind too, that if you're going to be filling your gaps with something that's really rigid and stiffens when it dries, if that piece flexes, it's going to crack, and it's going to pop that off, and eventually your piece is going to be ruined, and you're going to have to do it over again. But like I said, put the extra time into it, and you're going to avoid all these other steps that you have to take to fill in the gaps. So you'll be happy with that. But as always, you guys can always check out my current projects on Instagram at BMBids. And if you like this video, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe. And also, if you guys have anything you want to see, I'm starting to run out of ideas, so I'm going to start making videos, maybe be sitting here drinking beer. I don't know. Whatever it is, but give me your ideas. Whatever you guys want to see, I'd be happy to make a video for you. So that concludes today's video. You guys have a good weekend.